What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to StockWatch. This is number 3. StockWatch number 3. Let's go. With me, as always, of course, it's Will, waving his arms wildly all over the place, rocking out. Will, what is going on, my man?
Nothing much, man. Exam week, finals month for me. I have 3 weeks of exams.
That is absolutely terrible.
It is. It really is. But at least there's Survivor.
The classic. I gotta ask, why do you have a month worth of exams?
IB. So I have 6 IB classes, and they all have like 2-3 exams associated with them. And so like for history, I have a paper 1, which is like it gives you a prompt and it says like here's a political diagram, right? Like write about it. Second one is like a question about like World War II, like why did Germany invade Poland? And then there's the paper 3, which is just stuff we learned in 11th grade. So it's like the Ottoman Empire, like how did the Young Turks mess up the Ottoman Empire? And that's just with history, right? So it's 3 exams spread across 2 days. And so it's not fun.
That sounds like hell. It sounds terrible.
It is.
At Virginia Tech, we only have really about a week of exams. We have a reading day that's Thursday, which is last Thursday. And then we got about a week of exams, and then we're done. College is great. I would recommend going.
Virginia Tech is a nice school.
We'll talk about it later. Survivor, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So, Will, we'll start with you. What'd you like about the episode? What didn't you like? What went on in that brain of yours?
A lot of things in the episode I didn't like, none of which was from production. I thought this was a great episode production-wise. Yeah. Did I like what was happening in the game? Not one bit. But this was a very classic, or not a classic episode of Survivor, but just very like, it was a challenge, game talk, tribal. And so, again, why do people complain about the modern age? I keep rehashing this. Survivor hasn't changed. Like, this was just your normal old Survivor. There's some fun stuff with Jamie, the whole idol thing. I love how that's still her narrative, even though the idol's gone.
So good.
We had the fracturing of the Soka alliance, which was cool. That I like who went from the Soka tribe, not one bit, but it happened. And then we saw in the clip, it looks like Tika's going to fall apart with, people saying it's either Jam or Carson, with Carolyn being upset, understandably so. What about you, Jack?
I enjoyed it, but I did not enjoy it as much as the previous 2 episodes. I will agree. I think production really kind of nailed it on this one. It was a very boots on the ground type of episode. 2 challenges taking up a lot of time. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of because it's a waste of time that we could see was strategizing and bonding and all that stuff. But I get it with the reward for the loved one letters. Like I get that 100%. And I think what's really interesting, at least about these modern survivors, this new era, there is no family visit anymore. You'd think that with kind of the subduing of COVID, with the kind of end of COVID, essentially, you think, okay, family visits are going to come back. They're going to fly out people. But I'm starting to think that the actual logistics of flying people out are becoming a little bit too much for CBS, and that's why we're not getting the family visits anymore. I personally think not having the family visits is not a bad thing. But there's got to be something, right? Like I think the letters do enough. But I think the family visit is like, hey, it's like, it's like the waiter messed up your order at a restaurant. You wanted 1 roll, but he accidentally gave you 2. So he was just like, you can have the second one for free. It's on the house.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that. like having that second role is the family visit, but the love one letters are, it's like that one role. It's good. It does the job. Um, so that's that. I think there was, I wouldn't say missed opportunities. There was just a lot of missed potential, missed storylines that could have really developed. I was really starting to think that you were right and that Danny would be going home this episode. I
Same.
thought that Women's Alliance was absolutely going to come together and rock it for a vote. I thought that was happening 100%. And I was really disappointed when that all kind of fell apart once they all got back to camp and once it was time to strategize, how almost quickly it kind of all fell
Yep.
apart. And I think the other thing I was really, really not upset, but just kind of, I didn't really like it as a viewer, as an analyzer. I didn't like how the Danny and Heidi relationship basically just completely it fell apart. And it's uncommon nowadays to see tight pairings work so well together. I think the most iconic tight pairing from the past like 10 seasons is Dom and Wendell. And they were literally nearly the only thing in Ghost Island.
I disagree entirely.
Really? Please.
I think the last 3 seasons, there's always been one duo that has stuck out, right? Season 42 was a season of duos. I think in season 41 there was Shane and Ricard. They were the beating heart of season 41. You could not have season 41 play without them. Season 42 there was Hai and Mike. They were a duo. There was Omar and Marianne. They were a duo. And then 43 again, we saw the duo of Cody and Jesse. That was a huge plot point. They again, just like Shannon Ricard, they were the beating heart of season 43. And that's why people didn't like season 41 and 43 because they didn't win, There wasn't that payoff, I'm not saying that's the only reason why, but I think that's why people don't like the finales and how it turned out, right? Even if they didn't root for Shannon Ricard, they felt like both Gabler and Erica were undeserving because we saw more of Shannon Ricard and Jesse and Omar, or Jesse and Omar. No, Jesse and Cody. And the thing is that I think we're getting something similar with this season, but it's not a duo. It's more of just the throuple that is Carson, Jam, and Carolyn. But I think duos more than ever have been prevalent. And then there's also Spies Are Us from 40. There was Tommy and what's her name from Island of the Idols.
Tommy and Lauren.
Tommy and Lauren. They were a duo. So, I mean, are they as iconic as Wendell and Dom? No, but they had as much of an impact on their seasons as Dem and Wom. It's been a long day. Wendell and Dom.
Right. I think I'd like to rephrase my comment. Iconic duo that has gone all the way to the end together has not betrayed each other. And in the new era, I don't think we've had that. Like Ricard betrayed Shan, right? Yep. Mike betrayed Hai, right? And then Jesse betrayed Cody. All these super dynamic duos from these new seasons have broken up, and we thought, okay, maybe Danny and Heidi, obviously not together, they're going to be as dynamic as some of the other duos, but they are going to be a duo. That ended quickly. That ended with a bang, a snap. It's over, right? So that kind of disappointed me. And then obviously the third thing that I was kind of like, upset about, Franny going home. Yep. It was super telegraphed really early on that Franny was going home. Really unfortunate because, again, Franny is just a very awesome person and a pretty good player. But, it was
really good. Come on. I can say really good.
She did. She played a good game. It was really clear to see from early on. It's like, there's no way it's not Franny, right? Like It's got to be. If she doesn't win, she's gone. And that's exactly what happened.
And I was hoping because it was so obvious that it was going to be a pool where it's like, oh, we built it up to where Franny was going, but no, actually, it's Danny or Heidi. and
Right.
I was hoping that it was a Heidi boot, just because I like Heidi, or a Jamie boot. Let's once we get into the stocks, we can talk about Jamie and just I
Uh,
feel so bad. I feel awful.
Look, man, I think what I in a way appreciated about this episode overall was a lot of the older Survivor episodes were always like the A plot, where this person is the main target, they're going to go home. And then it was always the question at the end of the episode, a tribal council of, okay, it's either is the A plot person going home or is the B plot person going home?
Yeah.
A lot of earlier Survivor, it was always the A plot. Like the B plot was always brought up, but it was always the A plot going home.
Yeah.
This felt largely similar to that kind of old school Survivor where it's that A plot person who's going home. A lot of the recent seasons, and I'm dipping into the 30s and even 20s as well, a lot of the times it's a B plot or even a C plot person going home. Like it's out of nowhere some
Yeah.
of those times, and a good amount as well. And this episode, I really appreciated how it was an A plot. This person's going home, and in a way, I kind of think it's been that way for most of the season. Like it's been that, is it A, is it B, is it C? It's mostly been A. And so
Yeah.
I think that's been really good. And I think the great thing about that is that the more A plot people who go home, the better the B plots going home are.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Because I feel like that's what Survivor's been doing, where they try to build it up to like, oh, this person, huge threat, let's vote them out. And then they're like, gotcha. It's actually
Yeah.
this person. And it's like, it doesn't feel like a
It,
surprise.
it doesn't feel satisfying.
But this episode, I feel like it was kind of not surprising, but like there's still the element of, well, is it just another case of the B plot going home, or is Franny really going home? And again, I love how this episode, there was no production, like we don't notice production BS, which is good. We shouldn't notice production misinputs,
Absolutely.
right? Again though, like I would say Franny was my favorite, but like I can't compete with the beauty that is Jam Jam and Carolyn. But like she held her own. I put her those three as the best three of the season, character wise.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. With that being said, I think we should start getting into the stocks, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Carolyn, she's the same. And I think when we take a look at the Edgic at the end of the podcast, you're going to notice that I only have two contenders visibly left on the contenders list. And it's Jam Jam and Carolyn. Like, that's been very clear. I think Carolyn had a good episode on paper, but we're starting to see those cracks slip, and I think we kind of hit the nail on the head here when we said Carolyn is not having her voice heard. Mm-hmm. She's not having her opinions valued. She was building a bond with Franny and saw value in Franny as an ally, and Franny went home. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen now for two tribals in a row, Carolyn is playing a great under-the-radar game, is playing really, really good, and still has got that idol in pocket, but she's not getting her way. And it's kind of falling to whatever Jam Jam and Carson decide as to who's going to go home. Carolyn's just kind of, she's wanting to be a voice in that three and overall for the game, but she's not. And I'm starting to see, especially, like, again, the next time on Survivors, like, they air probably a few hours before this podcast. And so I watch them just to kind of figure out, okay, did we make a good indication and what can I kind of predict for next episode? Carolyn was heated.
Yep.
Real heated. Really, really mad at Jam Jam. And I think we're starting to see those cracks come up for Carolyn because, again, she's not having her voice heard.
I think part of it is that I think next episode is going to be her episode where she either rises or sinks because she hasn't had her voice heard yet. And this vote, because she was so tight with Franny and because, of her relationship, it could be the thing that makes her snap and say, hey, we should take out Jam Jam or probably Carson, right? I'm sticking true that Carson is getting voted out eventually. I'm not sure when. He is not winning this game. I love Carson, but we could see her next episode either go to someone like Heidi and Jamie and be like, "Hey, look, guys, this whole season has been dictated by Carson and Jam Jam. We should do something, right?" And I think it's because she has every reason to be mad and upset. And I think other players understand that. They know that. They knew that going into the tribal that they would know that Carolyn would be heated. And we saw that today where Carson and Jam Jam, they're like, well, is this worth trying to risk our relationship with Carolyn? And so I think as long as she's able to pull it back and not let it sink her own game, I think she could set herself up really, really well. Because don't forget too, she now has Franny on the jury. Franny, a huge fan of massive fan of Carolyn, probably the biggest Carolyn fan, more than anyone else watching.
Right.
While she was only and she also has Matt, because they're going to vote together, because that
Absolutely.
Because Matt's going to be like, well, if Carolyn treated Franny so well, then I'm a fan of Franny.
It's a package deal.
Fan of Carolyn. My bad. And so I think that could easily, influence the jury. And I don't know if everyone else knows that, or they might have an idea, but I don't think they understand how deep the connection goes. And for that reason, we could be looking at Carolyn sweeping the jury, despite her voice not being heard because of her social game. That's if Jam Jam doesn't make final tribal council.
Right. Absolutely. I like that kind of idea. I think it's really understated how truly powerful 2 for the price of 1 is in Survivor when it comes to juries. Because if you have a bond with one person and they are so tightly connected to another person, that's 2 votes for you on the jury. And that's also 2 people speaking for you on the jury. You can see the power in that in some of those seasons where there were those advocates on the jury. Like, I'm pretty sure Lucina had 2 in Game Changers. I don't know. I forget. But she had a good amount of support. That's 2 voices on the jury for somebody. So that's a big deal. And it's going to depend on how probably Jam Jam does, because, again, we don't think Carson's making the end. It's going to depend. It's going to depend on how Jam Jam does going into the end game.
Mm-hmm.
If she does make it there without Jam Jam and Carson, obviously, there's a chance. There's a real chance. And I think this episode, especially based on that next time on Survivor, is make or break. It's either you sink or you rise. So you got to get it done.
Yep.
And that's Carolyn's MO.
And too, like, she has that narrative where she has been underestimated. And this could lead one of 3 ways. Either A, this is not going to happen. A, she just doesn't have a voice at all and then loses the jury because no one listens to her. Not going to happen, but that could be, like, narrative wise. B, she makes it to, like, Final 4, makes a huge move against, like, Jam Jam or Carson, and people start listening and then realize how big of a threat she is, and she loses the game. 3, makes it to the end, cuts people at, like, Final 5, Final 4, and then people start to understand, sitting at the jury, how big of a game that she's playing. And I'm leaning towards the latter. I think Jam Jam is still number 1, but I think it's really, really close between Jam Jam and Carolyn, and that cannot be understated enough on how close they are with each other.
It's really been, we've had contenders bob up and dip down throughout the season, but really now, and I think for the past few episodes, realistically, it's been a 2-horse race for Jam Jam and Carolyn. And it's more a matter of, in my opinion, if Jam Jam makes the end. If he does, I think it's locked up. If he doesn't, Carolyn's got a good shot.
Yeah, unless the final, they both make final 2, and, like, Jamie has to break the tie.
That is literal conspiracy. That's literal crackpot. Will's crackpot theories, everyone.
Coming again, man. I love crackpot theories. They're so cool.
You have one, like, every time we do this.
Every episode for, like, the last 3 years I've been doing this podcast, man. I tell you, it's great.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, now we're gonna move on to Carson. And Carson moves up to 3 for me just because I think Heidi had a pretty bad episode. Yeah. it's not really a move that Carson is really going to move into that contender spot because it really is just Jam Jam and Carolyn as the 1 and 2. It's more of a, he's playing good. He's got a on paper good edit, and I think it's also again mostly the fact that Heidi had a bad episode. But I want to hear your opinion on this because I've been noticing for the past like last episode and a little bit the episode before, I and the next time on Survivor that was aired after the episode. I think Carson is gonna lose the fire making challenge.
You got that off of internet forums, and I'm a part of the same Reddits you are. I'm a part of the same.
No, man.
They say the same thing. He's losing. Oh, the scene of him looking.
No, it's looking at the fire for me. Like again, it's a perfect scenario. The perfect edit. The fire in his eyes. It just makes sense. That's what I think.
I think I could see it. I could see Carson winning. That honestly, but I feel like that would mean. So let's run it through like this, right? Let's say Jam Jam gets 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And that would mean a Carolyn win, right?
Yeah. So what would the final 4 be? So it would be Carolyn.
I'd say it's going to be like Jamie, and either Heidi or Lauren. Probably Heidi.
Okay. Jamie, Heidi, Carolyn, and then Carson.
Yep. And then who would beat Carson and Fire?
My guess would be Heidi, probably.
I see that too. I just don't see that's the problem. Like everyone's saying Carson's definitely losing Fire, but do we have any idea of who would win Fire? Because I feel like if you win Fire, then that gives you a better shot at winning the game.
Right? Especially if you win Fire against Carson, because at this point, the way that Carson is playing, and if he gets up in front of the jury, he'll be able to explain himself and win the game. I think so personally. I do think if he gets to the end, he wins. But based on what we've been seeing, it's not going to happen. That being said, I think beating someone like Carson in Fire, who is well respected and will be well respected, and everyone will look at him and go, "Hey, he played a great game." Beating him in Fire is a big move, and so I'm interested if he does lose Fire, who does he lose it to? Because could that person who wins Fire be the winner? Or does it really depend on the player who beats him?
Yeah, so the guy, I knew exactly when you started saying about your theory. I knew exactly it was going to be Carson. I'm a part of the same Reddit, man. Anywho, r/Edgic, go check him out.
r/Edgic, man. Go.
Yep. But I see it. Because I do agree with the narrative of how Carson was so prepared, but then he failed to prepare Fire.
Yeah,
I just don't know, because I think part of it too is I think the fear of going against Carson in Fire could be the reason why he goes out of 5, right? Because it's well known he's a super fan and he built these 3D models. It's obvious that he's practiced Fire because that's the one thing anyone could practice without spending any money. And so I think Fire would play a reason into him being voted out, but I'm not entirely sold that it's because he lost Fire making. Because I feel like he would be really good at Fire making because he is a super fan and has practiced.
I like that idea. I think you're right on the nose. I think it's either he does lose Fire making or he gets voted out at 5th. Like Janet in Island of the Idol. She got Idol nullified and voted out unanimously at 5th because if she made it to Final 4, she was making Fire and winning the game. Like she was going to win everybody on the jury, 100%.
Yep.
So that fear is a very valid fear nowadays, and I think you might be right. If Carson does not get 4th because he loses Fire, he will most certainly get voted out at 5th. I don't think he goes in the next 2 episodes personally.
Yeah, at this point, I want him to go just so I can feel like I called it. If he wins the game, I'm donating a lot of money to charity.
How much money? How much money?
I don't know. I'm broke, man. I'll donate like $20.
Okay.
I'm that broke.
I like it. How generous of you.
Oh,
Okay. We're moving on to Danny.
this was a really
Oh,
bad episode. This was and it wasn't the worst episode for someone. This was probably the worst Danny episode by far.
I think I hit it on the nose, honestly. I said that there was a negative kind of tint to his edit and how he was being presented. And I think that's started to really come into effect. He's really starting to become this.
Arrogant.
I wouldn't call him the villain of the season because,
Who else?
like, yeah, who else? But realistically, there are no more like real villains on Survivor. Like, think of the last real villain we had on Survivor.
Varner.
Hmm?
Varner.
No, like an actual intentional. This person's a villain, hands down.
That's because even like in Winners at War, like Tony Vlachos, he was villain in Cagayan, he didn't play like a villain game, and he would be someone I thought would be like the de facto. He's the villain, you know. I think Shan was a villain, but like the thing is that villains don't really find a lot of success in Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh well, villains that they're able to be more cutthroat, but I think players are just as cutthroat as they've always been. I think they just are aware that they're playing a game and they want to appease the jury, so they're not being a-holes, right? Now I don't know when we'll have just a straight up d-bag, but I think too, like I blame Twitter and just online groups, because not just Twitter, Facebook especially, so hateful, and they will attack anyone and anything.
Very vicious.
And
really
so
vicious.
I think having a villain, I think production is just scared, right?
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, speaking on a little bit, I might have a little bit of my own crackpot theory. I think that's why we might probably never get a real heroes versus villains again. Because I just don't think that they really want to edit people like villains on Survivor anymore. It's a lot more complex than that nowadays. Mm-hmm. It's either really heroic people who might have like a little negative thing about them, or like really mixed people who are really, really positive, but also really, really, really negative. So you're not gonna. So that's why I don't think there's ever going to be a heroes versus villain season again, and that's why I don't say Danny is a real villain of the season. But if you were to put it on someone, it is Danny.
He's season 44's villain, and that's interesting. I read an interview with Romeo from 42, and he was saying how snarky and like sarcastic he was. He was like talking trash about everyone, but they never aired it because they don't want those types of villains. And I don't blame production. And so it's like I think when it comes to people like complaining like, oh, they don't cast villains anymore, it's just production's masking these villains. Right. And I don't blame them whatsoever. I don't blame production. I blame us as people, specifically you, Jack.
Thank you, Will. I blame you as well. Just you.
Back to you, Jack.
Thank you. But yeah, I in terms of stocks, it's basically just get rid of it. If you still have it, get rid of it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory for Danny. And yeah, so
next up,
Heidi. Not a great episode for Heidi. Losing her, kind of duo, kind of partnership with Danny. That kind of fell to the wayside.
And she got blamed for it.
There was just like a hint of negativity. She really just kind of, I don't know, she was really on that Danny train. Like, once the girls were like, oh yeah, we're going to get rid, like, well, Danny's a good move, Heidi was like, yes. And then it got flipped on her because Heidi did a admittedly pretty bad job of, I think it was talking to Carolyn about, trying to, I don't even remember. Heidi played it bad.
Yeah, Heidi went to Carson and Carolyn and was saying, hey, Danny's saying he has the votes. Because don't forget, Danny went to Heidi and was like, we are voting out Franny. I don't care if you have the votes or not. Like, your vote does not matter. And
Right.
so Heidi was like, "What is happening?" Went to Carolyn and Carson. It was like, "Hey, so are we good?" And then they got mad at Heidi for being the person spreading negativity and like spreading, whatnot. I think out of all the Sokas, she wasn't going, but it's still just like Jesus, because like her whole alliance, the Soka Four, they just fell apart. They imploded, right?
Yeah.
And she was just kind of there having to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. I mean, bad episode for her. A few I think the first StockWatch episode we talked about Heidi really needs to start building on her game and
Mm-hmm.
start talking about her future, and it has just been downhill from there. Even with finding an idol, you'd think
Yeah.
finding an idol that means that's all's good for your game. It hasn't. Heidi has
Yeah.
started to trend downward, and I think we're kind of seeing. I think we're seeing Heidi probably as a losing finalist. I'm not going to lie to you. I
I
think
think
that's
so too.
the most likely scenario is Heidi losing at the end. Does she get second or third? I don't know. I don't know. She might get a vote.
I think she gets second. I
Yeah,
she's next. I don't think Jamie's winning the game. I don't think she's getting a vote, and I feel bad.
yeah. If anyone next to Jamie, it's a guaranteed second place probably, which is really unfortunate for Jamie, but that's how we roll.
Speaking of
But yeah.
which,
Oh, look at that! It's Jamie. Oh,
so
how the
I
mighty have fallen. How the mighty have fallen. Jamie. Oh my God. Absolutely dogged on this episode for telling the truth. My thing is when you play Survivor, it's a game of lies. It's a game of deception. Who can you trust? Who can you backstab, betray? All that kind of stuff. Telling the truth is a risky move. Is so risky because obviously you have to gauge that people will take it at face value and what their reactions will be, and then what they're going to go tell other people and what they actually believe. And unfortunately for Jamie, that lie just was not good, or the truth just wasn't good. The truth that she gave it to Kane and Kane went home with it was terrible. Admittedly, telling that specific truth is absolutely really, really bad move. I've really never seen anyone say, "Oh yeah, my idol is gone. It just went away."
yeah,
That never works. And unfortunately for Jamie, I think she's kind of figuring that out now. But again, I think it's just a theme with Jamie, a commonality. She's been misled. She's
yep.
been misconstrued. There's misunderstanding. So poor Jamie.
It's even worse because this whole time the idol was fake. The idol is not real. It has
It's
no weight. There's nothing
oh
about the
my
idol that's significant, and yet that's her. Even when Matt's gone, it's still her most prominent storyline. We're
exactly.
like 3 episodes or 1 episode in. I called Matt Kane, or I called Kane Matt. Oh my god, I've been doing that all episode. They're the same person. Oh my god. No, even when Kane's gone, that's just all Jamie is a gone idol. And I feel bad, right? Because she was so happy just to tell the truth and like get it. She's like, yeah, weight is
Yeah.
off my shoulders. I'm an honest person. She's just someone that I don't think understood what she was getting herself into, And I feel awful because this whole season has just been dogging on her.
She's had to be one of the most probably clueless edits I've seen in the new era personally. Like
Yeah.
unfortunately clueless. And I think that's really unfortunate because Jamie is such a sweet person, but it's really just clueless. And I think that's really sad.
It's just to trust a guy who got out in episode 5 and it's episode 10.
It's terrible. I don't know where she goes from here, honestly. I don't know if she was a target. Like she was a target this episode.
For her own truth.
Does she go home next? Does she make it to the end as a losing finalist?
Yep.
You think she goes to the end as a losing finalist? I personally think she goes home next episode or the following.
I don't think so. I think now they're going to start looking at threats and targets.
We'll see.
Well, they
I don't
already
know.
did with Franny, but like, I think the Tika, they're going to start looking at the Tikas as like a huge threat because of Carolyn's outburst, Carson controlling the game, Jam social game. I don't, or they go after Danny, and Danny's a villain. I think Heidi, Jamie, and Lauren. I think they're all. I don't think any of them are going home next episode.
We'll
Maybe
see.
Lauren. I don't know.
I don't
Don't take
know.
that as fact.
Speaking of, hi Lauren. The highest she's ever been on the StockWatch. Look at that. Number 5. Well done, Lauren. I really started to appreciate Lauren, and again, always just wish there was more of her, because for the second episode in the past 3 episodes, that we talked about it, really, really positive stuff. Really, really overwhelmingly positive. She really got to comment about. She made a great comment about her family and getting the loved one letter, and then 2 episodes ago, winning immunity. Like, I wish we saw more of that, and we just saw more of Lauren overall, because I personally think she's really, really pleasant, and I think that it's really, really unfortunate that we. I think again, I think she goes to another season, and I think she flourishes. She does fantastic.
Yeah.
But because she's in a season with Jam and Carolyn and even Carson,
And
Franny, there's just no room. And it sucks because Lauren, I think, is awesome.
I felt so bad because I remember in like the merge when we had the huge Lauren drought of 2023 where we never saw any content from her. She is just like, we're all cool people. Just give us more confessionals. And I'm just like, Lauren, like, I don't even think there was no room. I think honestly, just have her have like 1 or 2 confessionals, because again, we saw a really cool human moment during the reward challenge today, right? Is it strategically sound? No, but like we're seeing more of her, and that's good, and it's not in a negative light too. Like with Jamie, when we got the huge Jamie drought of 2023, or we never had a Jamie drought, we had a Heidi drought of 2023. That's what I'm meant to say.
I think it's really interesting. I think, just to kind of put a point on Lauren, I think I really appreciate the contrast from the first episode Lauren to this Lauren. The first episode, Lauren was like, I want to play the game. I'm going for that advantage. I'm playing hard. I'm ready to go. I am abstaining my vote. I'm getting an extra vote. We've just seen almost a complete turnaround. And she's just this really positive character. And I honestly did not expect that. I will say I was shocked to see another episode where Lauren had just an overwhelmingly positive experience put out on the show, on TV.
Yep.
And man, that's just awesome. Now, I want to talk about something else with Lauren. It was talked about in a previous podcast. I think it was either Thursday or Friday, I forget, but it was with Abraham, and it was the recap of this episode. They talked about this idea of an after the show, where after the show there would be an hour to 2 hours of extra content, where it would be extra confessionals, extra strategy time, extra camp life, stuff like that.
Do you know who came up with this idea?
Was it you?
Yeah.
God damn it.
I had this idea. I said it like last season or it wasn't like after the show, but it would just be like one big long secret scene of just camp life. Understand? Because that's what that's what a lot of people want to see. They want to see more camp life and whatnot. But I get why they don't show it, because there's not a lot of time, and Survivor is social strategic. But I would love to see like an hour of just them sitting around, talk about family, talk about what motivates them. That would give someone like Lauren, whose most content is just personal, right, a lot more depth, and people would be like, "I'm a huge Lauren fan. Like, look at her after the show." But my idea.
It's
I
a great
agree.
idea.
Thank
I think people would absolutely tune in. Now, do I think it will get the viewing numbers that regular Survivor has? No, because
no.
the casuals, they just watch Survivor. They just watch Survivor every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. That's it. But
Yep.
you take a look at Big Brother, and you take a look at the episodes for Big Brother, and then the live feeds for Big Brother, and there's a ginormous gap between viewing numbers. But the live feeds are still fantastic and are supported by all those people who actively watch them.
Are you a
And
live
so
feeder?
and yeah, like so having
Man.
having like the 4 to 5 million viewers or whatever Survivor has nowadays for the regular
Mhm.
episodes, and then the million ish like super like real super fans who really want to watch that extra stuff to see
Yeah.
what it's like. I
And
think that you can put that just on Paramount Plus. That doesn't need to
yep.
be a live TV on network on cable kind of thing.
Yeah, no, 100. Make it Paramount Plus only because then that incentivizes CBS or whoever to make money off it. That's
Right,
why live feeds are still a thing in Big Brother because that makes Paramount Plus the most amount of money. I just
right.
made that statistic up. Don't look it up. It's probably true because live like live feeds are what give Big Brother so much charm and depth, and that's why people still love the
Mhm.
show. And I know like Big Brother Canada got rid of them,
Yep.
and there's been a huge uproar from the fans because that's what made Big that's why it's called Big Brother. It's because based off of
Right.
1984, right? And so and the it also gives a lot of players depth, right? Because there's a lot of players like Turner from Big Brother 24 who was completely invisible like the first few weeks, but
Right.
everyone or people knew him because of the live feeds. Um, Now, hear me out. Survivor live feeds can't be done, but like, can you
Mhm.
imagine how cool it'd be?
That'd be nuts. That would be
Just
insane. And, obviously it would kind of ruin the whole idea of, oh, this is a pre film show. We're editing it to figuring out the winner. But, you know,
hmm
live feeds would be pretty cool.
But if not live feeds, which it's just impossible,
Yeah.
you can't just film a whole island as a TV set. But if not that, just have it be, an hour long, you know, camp life, conversations about family, about food, it'll give a lot or like fun stories and people would love it
Absolutely.
and it would make them money.
It would. I think it would. I think we got a little sidetracked. Let's
We
go with
did.
our final Jam Jam. Still at
Jam.
number one. Not a lot to say, but I do have one thing I'd like to say about Jam Jam that I think solidifies him for me as if he gets to the end, he wins, and there's a good chance that happens. It's the fact that he got the opportunity to talk about missing those love letters
Yep.
when nobody else did. And generally everyone was like, "Oh man, I wish I got those love letters. That sucks." But James Jim actually got to have a
Yeah.
confessional.
A
Like
whole
he got to
confession.
have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that solidifies for me that personally, like it's a game of does he get to the end? If he gets to the end, he
Yeah.
wins the game. And now it's just a matter of does he actually get there?
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think I love like Jam Jam and Carolyn. I think they have the two biggest personal storylines, and Lauren's also high up there.
Mhm.
We have Carolyn's sobriety, and then now we have Jam Jam's family, and just him on that rock crying his eyes out, talking about his mom and how CBS loves showing us the pictures now where we see his husband and whatnot. Because we know that Jamie and Carson and Danny, they all miss their loved ones. They all would have killed for a letter, but we saw
Right.
we saw Jam Jam cry. Well, something oddly enough too, we see how Carson views it all strategically, where he's
Mhm.
like, I see this as a way for us to try to vote out Franny,
Right.
which I think is a negative to him because it shows that he is missing that human aspect.
Right.
You know. Now, am I saying that that's why Carson's losing the game? No, but I'll make up any reason to make a jab at Carson. We just need to get him on for this podcast.
That would be hype. That would be hype. I'd love to see Carson on. Are we good with Jam Jam?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say about Jam Jam because he's been consistent. Like, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, again, I think it's very tight between Jam Jam and Carolyn. I think, you know, but they're like this. They're the first and second.
Right.
And after the controversy of both Erica and Gabler winning, I know the season was filmed right after 43, but just bear with me. I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't see a world where, like, Jamie wins.
Right. Especially after production has been kind of hyping up this season. Like Jeff likes this season. So, it's
So
obviously.
we get an obvious winner.
Yeah, or somewhat obvious at least.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a new thing. We've done a new thing for y'all. Before today, we would go back to the beginning of the slides. We would look at the edgic, and then we would go through each slide again to figure out the StockWatch position of where everyone was. We changed it up this time, and so we created a tier list. Ba-bing! So let me read over the symbol key for y'all. So we have pluses, minuses, equals, and a slash. Plus, plus, plus is an amazing episode. You need a buy. Great episode, buy. Good episode, buy. And then equals is average, which means stay it where you are. Minus is a bad episode with a sell. Double minus is a really bad episode. And then triple minus is horrendous. You got to get rid of it now. And then we have the slash for people who, if you have the stock, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so we're going to go over it. So Jam Jam, at number 1 with a plus. We talked about why I personally think, and why Will thinks as well, Jam Jam had such a great episode is because he got to talk about his family. And he got more personal content about that. So great episode. Not amazing because he's still being looked at as kind of a threat and that target is ever looming. But beyond that, really, really great episode. Well, Carolyn, equal sign. It's a mix with Carolyn. A good episode on paper, and she's playing a good under the radar game, but she didn't have her voice heard, and so now we're kind of in a weird, small little limbo with Carolyn, where we're wondering if her voice is going to be heard, and if it's heard, is it going to be in a good way or a bad way? And so that's. Yeah.
And I think, too, with this episode, there was a positive of her relationship with Franny and how that's a huge boost for a jury.
Right.
And we had, the reward. But then there's also the negative where her ally did go home and she's not being heard. But I think they balance each other out. And I think, again, especially the next episode or maybe even the episode after, they're going to be where Carolyn either becomes the robbed goddess or winner of Survivor 44.
Right. I like that. Carson, you got it. Carson's a plus. Not much to say about the plus. He had control of the vote. He is in control of the game. I really think Will kind of pointed it out perfectly, where Carson strategically talked about the family visit, whereas Jam Jam personally talked about the family or the love letters. And I think that's the key difference. And I think if we don't get anything personal from Carson, it's just, we figured it out. Heidi was a minus. It could have been a minus, and I think it was, could have been pretty close to a minus. But it's just a minus because there's still some potential with Heidi, with her idol, and with, she's actually been talked about as a threat. Like, we thought, okay, Heidi's laying real low. Nobody sees her. She is playing super under the radar. She was pointed out as a threat this episode, literally as a shark under the water this episode. And so, in a way that's a positive and a negative. And so that's why we think personally negative for Heidi for this episode.
Yeah. Not much to say on my end.
Lauren is a plus. Great personal episode for her.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't buy too much because I do think that her time is running very thin. So I think just buy like one, just buy like one or two.
By
Just
one
buy
for
like
one.
one or two. Just buy one or two.
Plus,
And then get rid of it.
she had a good episode, and it beats Danny and Jamie.
Oh boy, Danny and Jamie. Danny minus minus. You look like a fool out there, my boy. The supposed villain of the season is clowning on people and kind of getting clowned on himself. So yeah, minus minus for him. I'd sell if you have any stock left. And then we go to the spot where it's really unfortunate, but is reserved for just the rarest people, the Slash. Why in God's name do you have any more stock of this person? Again, at 6 episodes ago, I would have been like, hey, good on you for having some Jamie stock. That's a sleeper pick. Now,
Yeah.
you got any stock left, you might as well be throwing it out in the dumpster.
She crashed harder than 1932, man. I tell you one thing, man.
The Great Depression. The Great Depression and Jamie. Which crashed harder? Man, crazy. But poor Jamie. But yeah, so that's a new thing, new tier list. I think we're going to tinker it with a little bit, see if we can refine it a little bit because, this was kind of just a
graphic designers are passion, man.
We are graphic designers. We just kind of threw it together. So we'll probably tinker it with a bit, but I think this is good. I like this.
Yeah.
The last thing we're gonna go all the way back is the Edgic. Hooray! Our favorite. So not a lot of things strike me here. I think it's going to be a debate between CP and middle of the road for Jam Jam, but I said middle of the road because it was a little over the top and a little CP for him.
Yeah.
And then
go ahead.
It's tough because you want to give people fives and you want to kind of give, okay, this person was definitely the focus of the episode. It was tough this episode. So, like last episode, I also gave just a good amount of fours. Jamie, Franny, and Carson got fours, while the rest got threes and twos. And that's about it. It's a pretty self-explanatory episode.
Yeah, I think I would have put Danny as an over the top, not gonna lie.
Really?
I think so. I think it was OTTN. I think just the way he talked to people, that's the only thing we really heard from Danny was not just what he was saying, but how he was talking to someone like Heidi. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll have more repercussions later on and how I think that's shifting his view or people's view on him.
Right.
But that's just, I agree with everything. And even middle of the road is good.
Yeah.
I think if I made it, that was the only thing I'd change.
That's fair. I see that. I see that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. But before we end it, I have one more thing, an opportunity that I'd like to discuss with you, Will. As you know, Survivor 44 ends in it's like 3 more episodes, 3 more weeks, and then it's done. And that's the end of May. We're not going to have any, there's definitely not any South African Survivor. There's no Australian Survivor, and there's no U.S. Survivor, meaning if we didn't do anything, StockWatch would be pretty dormant. We wouldn't be doing anything until the next season of Survivor aired.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
I'd like to propose something that was also proposed in the podcast on Thursday, which I think is a really splendid idea. One of these days, this summer, in the Survivor dry spell, we should go back to a previous season and we should do StockWatch, not for every episode, like every week, but we should do 1 or 2 sessions where we just lay it all out there, episode by episode, and we give a posthumous analysis of it.
Not I'd like it. I thought you were going to say Big Brother StockWatch.
I could do that as well. I would be opposed to that as well.
I mean, we didn't talk about it at all, and I don't know how Randy would take it because we're called Survivor now.
Right.
But like, if that's all
It
we're
would be
doing,
a multimedia podcast. We would transition into a multimedia thing.
yeah,
You know, could happen.
just once a week we talk about who's up, who's down, and that's the thing too. It's like it's harder with Big Brother because it's not.
Because Big Brother can change every day.
Every week we saw day 44 last time. No, Joseph's birthday, and then day 44. Like, but that's something we can consider and talk about when Big Brother comes around. But I do like the idea of having a posthumous. I think our first season should be Gabon just because of how funny it would be.
Really? You want to do Gabon? Oh my god!
My second favorite season of Survivor. Or we can even, I mean, this is going to be very generic and basic, but even like just a season tier list.
Yeah,
one
you
night
can do that as well.
we get everyone together, or everyone who's seen most seasons.
Ooh,
Combine all the podcasts, make it a big Survivor Now production.
I like it. We're talking big. We're talking big picture here at StockWatch. I like it. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll talk. We'll talk to Mr. Randy. We'll talk to the big man at Survivor Now podcast about Big Brother Live, about posthumous Survivor analysis, about a tier list making. The summer is dry for Survivor, unfortunately, but don't be expecting to drown in content. We'll cook up something for you guys.
We'll get more Jack and Will content.
Yeah, that's what you like. All right. Well, this has been Jack and Will with the stocks. Will, you got anything else to say?
Follow Saving Bruce if you're going to be in Maryland July 14th. Come to my show.
Go to Will's show. He's in a band, and it's awesome. All right. Thank you all so much for coming, and we will see you next week.
See ya.